Come closer, my children. Sit by the warmth of this fire, for the night grows long, and wisdom travels best on the wings of story. What I will share is no tale of beasts or spirits. It is a tale of men and women, of hearts that bleed and yet choose not to roar. It is the story of Nyasha, the calabash bearer, and how silence became her shield, and forgiveness her secret crown. Long ago, when the earth was still young and the rivers still sang the songs of the first rain, there was a village called Mbali, hidden in the arms of towering baobabs. The people of Mbali were farmers and gatherers, makers of pottery, singers of evening songs. Among them lived a woman named Nyasha, daughter of a potter. Nyasha was known not for beauty or wealth, but for her gentleness. She bore water from the river each day in a calabash larger than a child's cradle. People said that when she walked, she carried not only water, but peace itself. But peace, my children, is often envied by those who do not have it. Nyasha had a sister of the heart, Ziri. Since childhood, they were inseparable, sharing mats, dreams, even whispers beneath the stars. But as they grew, Ziri's heart grew restless. She saw how people trusted Nyasha, how men sought her counsel, how children followed her footsteps. And envy, my children, is a fire that begins with smoke. One dry season, Ziri began to whisper. Do you know why Nyasha's calabash never cracks? Do you know why her harvests are full even when rains delay? It is because she feeds spirits by the river. It is because she keeps charms in the darkness. Her words spread like locusts through millet fields. Slowly, the village that once greeted Nyasha with songs began to greet her with silence. One evening, the elders summoned Nyasha beneath the baobab of judgment. The air was thick with whispers, the smoke of suspicion curling higher than the flames of the council fire. Men and women pressed close, their eyes heavy with doubt, their silence sharper than any spear. The oldest elder, voice like gravel and wind, spoke. Daughter of clay and calabash, speak the truth. Do you walk with spirits unseen? Do you feed shadows to gain favor? Nyasha's heart pounded. She wished to shout, to split the night open with her pain. She longed to tear her chest wide so all could see the purity of her heart, beating without blemish. But as she searched their eyes, she found no door of understanding. Their ears, she saw, were already sealed by the wax of envy. Their minds had been poisoned before she had spoken a single word. For the first time in her life, Nyasha felt the chill of a village that no longer embraced her. She was amazed at the elders' questioning, and at last, she understood why greetings had grown cold, why neighbors who once sang her name now turned their backs. Suspicion had already taken root. And then, the truth struck her like lightning. It was Ziri, her sister of the heart, her childhood companion, who had scattered this evilness like seed into the soil of the village. The lies had grown into thorns, cutting her from the very people she had loved. Tears welled in Nyasha's eyes. She bowed her head and whispered with trembling lips, "No, Baba, I do not know what you are speaking of. My hands are clean. My calabash holds only water." But her words fell into silence, like stones into a dry well. No echo returned. No comfort came. The council's eyes remained clouded. That night, when the fire died low and the people dispersed, Nyasha walked home alone. She felt the sharpness of isolation for the first time. Children avoided her shadow. Women carried their pots away from her path. Men spoke to her only with narrowed eyes. The whole village believed she bore a spell, and the warmth of belonging was taken from her. Nyasha carried this wound for many moons. She withdrew from the circle of laughter, from the rhythm of the drums, from the voices of neighbors. She sat in her hut in silence, and in that silence she began to listen not to the voices of others but to the voice within. And in those quiet hours, Nyasha saw her own reflection clearly for the first time. She realized that resentment had chained her, that loneliness had poisoned her spirit. She saw that the bitterness she carried had grown into a tree whose shadow fell upon her own heart. In time, Nyasha's tears washed the dust from her soul. She began to see that holding resentment, even towards Zuri, was a heavy weight, a stone she was no longer willing to carry. And so, she laid it down. She chose forgiveness. Not to erase what had been done, not to return to Zuri's circle, but to free herself from the prison of her own making. She forgave Zuri for the friendship that had been destroyed, but she did not invite her back into her life. She forgave so that her own spirit might be free. Her forgiveness was quiet, without announcement. It did not demand that Zuri open her arms again. Instead, Nyasha chose to love from a distance, to honor what once was without seeking to rebuild what was lost. And in that silent forgiveness, she found her freedom. The freedom to live without the boredom of resentment, without the chains of bitterness, without the shadow of envy. From that day forward, Nyasha carried her calabash lighter, not because its water weighed less, but because her spirit no longer bore the burden of hatred. And thus, in silence, she discovered the true power of forgiveness. At first, Zuri laughed. "See how the village believes me. See how her voice carries no weight." She paraded her false triumph like beads around her neck, enjoying the way neighbors nodded at her words. But seasons have long memories, my children. Rains returned, harvests grew, children grew tall. The dust of one season does not stay forever. The wind uncovers what is hidden. And slowly the people began to notice something. Though they shunned Nyasha, she never quarreled, never cursed, never sought revenge. She carried herself like the mountain, silent, unmoving, unbothered by storms. Her silence was not weakness, but strength, and it stirred unease in those who had turned against her. Meanwhile, Zuri's tongue grew restless. Each lie she planted demanded another. Each story she spun wrapped tighter around her, until even her own heart could not find rest. When she laughed, her laughter was brittle. When she slept, shadows woke her. The lies she had sown became thorns in her own bed. The people began to see. For truth needs no shouting. It is patient as the sun, rising whether or not men believe in dawn. They saw that Nyasha's silence was not guilt but grace, and Zuri's noise was not strength but decay. And so, like leaves turning when the season changes, their eyes began to clear, and they remembered who Nyasha truly was. In the fullness of time, the village saw both women plainly. Nyasha, walking alone yet carrying peace like water in her clay pot. Zuri, surrounded by her own words, yet thirsty, restless, never at ease. And the people said quietly among themselves, "The mountain does not need to shout. The river does not argue with the stones." One elder, who had once cast doubt upon Nyasha, approached her at the well. His voice was low, almost ashamed. "Daughter, forgive us. We listened to noise and forgot the sound of truth." Nyasha only bowed her head. She spoke no bitterness, for she had already laid down that weight. Forgiveness was not a gift she gave in that moment, it was a gift she had long since given herself. As for Zuri, she lived in the shadow of her own weaving. No curse fell upon her, no hand struck her down. Life itself was the teacher. For every lie returns to its maker, and every seed bears fruit in its season. She learned, too late, that envy leaves a person empty, even in a crowded room. And so, children of the fire, hear this lesson. To forgive in silence is not to bow, but to rise. To close the door softly is not hatred, but wisdom. When you carry resentment, you drink poison and expect another to fall. When you release it, you walk free, even if the world remains the same. Nyasha's name, once darkened by slander, became a lantern remembered in the village. Not because she shouted her innocence, but because she lived it. Zuri's name became a warning spoken in hushed tones, envy's echo that teaches the ears of children. And if you walk the red earth paths of that land today, they say you can still see a woman at the well in the memory of Story. Shoulders steady, eyes calm, carrying her calabash not only with water, but with the lightness of a heart unburdened. So remember, my children, silence can be a shield, forgiveness can be freedom, and sometimes the most powerful word you will ever speak is the one you never utter again. So listen, my children. When betrayal comes, and it will not come from strangers but from hands once held, remember Nyasha. Forgiveness does not always walk hand in hand with reconciliation. Sometimes forgiveness is a seed planted in silence, watered only by distance. It does not shout. It does not announce. It does not reopen doors that once burned you. Forgiving in silence is strength dressed in calm. It is the mountain that does not bow to the storm. It is the river that flows whether praised or mocked. Nyasha forgave, but she never spoke again to the one who wounded her. That was not cruelty. That was wisdom. For to forgive without guarding your peace is to leave your heart open to the same wound. So, my children, let your forgiveness be real, but let your silence be final. Close the door softly, firmly, and walk into freedom. And that, my children, is the story of Nyasha, the calabash bearer. Carry it in your heart as you carry water in a calabash, balanced, steady, and never spilling to those who do not deserve a drop. For silence, when chosen with wisdom, speaks louder than 1,000 words. If this story has touched your heart, carry it with you. Share it with another. Let the wisdom of the ancestors walk beside you. Until we meet again by the fire, walk slowly, live deeply, and let your heart beat its true rhythm.